Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you had a pleasant holiday season. Mine was pretty good, but like most of you, I'm probably most excited about the fact that the year 2020 is coming to an end. Now, I won't join in the chorus of why this year sucked. We all lived through it, so we know that it sucked. But there is one thing that I do want to talk about that was actually good out of this year. And that thing, my friends, was Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Yes, I am going to be trivializing all of the shitty things that happened this year by talking about Star Wars. In all seriousness, this was a really good season. It was nice to see something finally come out that was good with Star Wars. The last couple of years of Disney Star Wars has been, to put it lightly, not been good. It has definitely been at least divisive, if not just outright bad. I won't get into all of that. Let's just say that I'm not the biggest fan of the sequel trilogy. I wished for a lot of things, and a lot of those things didn't come true. Something that has come good out of Disney recently has been The Mandalorian. It's something that has gotten almost universal acclaim from both critics, casual fans, and of course, Star Wars fans. It's been one of the few things that has actually been uniting the fan base for a long time. Now, I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty about what I thought of the season and reviewing each individual episode. There are too many videos out there like that. What I want to do in this video is I want to express my thoughts of what the future of Star Wars should be after Mandalorian Season 2 is now ended. The show left off in a very exciting place where the stories could go. I'm going to be giving both my thoughts of what I think Disney is going to do, but also what my fan wish would be for where the series will now take place, and where all of the surrounding series that have been announced recently are going to go as well. Now, without any further delay, let's strap ourselves in and get ready to go into hyperspace. I'm Keenan H. Crotty, aka Keenman, and we're going to be talking about the future of Star Wars after the Return of the Jedi. Now, I'm going to give the obvious caveat that there is going to be spoilers. So if you haven't seen Season 2 of The Mandalorian, you're insane. Go watch it. It's so good. So good. So anyway, with that out of the way, let's now get into my thoughts and opinions about where Star Wars is going to be going now after Season 2 of The Mandalorian. So where is The Mandalorian going to go now? It's an interesting question, because if we're looking over the course of the 16 episodes that we've been given so far, it's seemingly been the story of Din Djarin and Grogu and their relationship together. It's about their father and son bonding and how they both seemingly grow from their relationship with each other. Grogu has been around since the end of episode 1, and now he is gone, and presumably will be gone for a while. It seems almost inconceivable to have the show be without Grogu, especially counting the fact that Grogu is obviously the most popular character that Disney Star Wars has created, and is arguably one of the most popular characters in Star Wars ever. Trying to imagine the show without him being this cute, adorable heart of the show, and also with the tons of Disney money that they make off of all the freaking merchandise that they make off of Grogu, is kind of hard to conceive of. Of course, any rational, sane person is going to realize that Grogu cannot possibly be gone from the show for long. Now, the question is just, what are they going to do with Grogu? I guess you could go in one of two ways. I mean, if Disney is too afraid of losing all of that Grogu money, I'm thinking that maybe Season 3 will include some intermittent scenes where we see how it's going with Grogu and his Jedi training with Luke. What are the benefits of doing this? Well, one benefit is the fact that obviously if you keep Grogu in the show in some capacity, you're going to keep a lot of fans happy. Keeping Grogu around in that way will be nice. It will give audiences at least that little taste of Grogu, even if they're not getting his interactions with Din specifically, or the Mando. The other advantage of that is that obviously you would get more scenes of Luke Skywalker. Fans always want to see, and even casual people are going to want to see, Luke Skywalker in kind of his prime, right? A few years after Return of the Jedi, being the Jedi Master that we sorely missed in the sequel trilogies. Now, why do I think this is not necessarily what I think they're gonna do, nor is it what I want them to do? Well, for one, I think if you show scenes of Grogu being raised by Luke Skywalker, as cool as that's gonna be, it sort of ruins the impact, the emotional impact of Grogu being taken away. I mean, that was a very huge emotional moment for the show. That is a very big arc. All of these things that Mando has done in order to keep Grogu safe, to get him to his kind as he was quested, was kind of like the big crux of this whole series thus far. And I think to have Grogu still be seen, even if he's not not with Mando makes that sacrifice and all those things that he did, all those changes that he made as a person to grow. I mean, he starts off as a relatively cold bounty hunter that's very strict with his code, to somebody who obviously is willing to break that dogma that he's been raised with his whole life for somebody that he loves and cares about. He's found things beyond simple rules to care about. So I think that kind of diminishes his sacrifice and his growth as a character if we suddenly just get a little bit of Grogu. I think we as the audience should be essentially put into a place similar as Din, where we're just not going to see him. It's going to be tough, it's going to hurt, and we're going to have to feel that separation. And I think it would be relatable and a good and strong and brave storytelling choice to have Din and the audience experience Grogu separation anxiety, if you will, at the same time. I think it's the choice that they're gonna make. Now, the reason why I say that is that honestly, with this show, I'm not afraid to say that whatever is unexpected, they're going to do with this show. I never thought that they would bring Luke Skywalker in, based on the fact that this show has already included Clone Wars and Rebels characters such as Bo-Katan and Ahsoka Tano, and the fact that Dave Filoni from those shows is on here, and that there's just so many, like Rebels references by bringing up like Grand Admiral Thrawn, for example, that I just thought that this show was going to be like largely a continuation of that, and that they were going to never try and bring back a legacy character like Luke Skywalker. So I thought they were afraid and that they wouldn't do it, but this show did do it. I thought they were going to bring in Ezra Bridger, for example, was going to be the character that comes in. Now, I realize in retrospect that he probably is going to be in the Ahsoka show, but he seemed like the choice that they were going to do, or maybe they just make up a character. But they went with Luke Skywalker, who not only is the fan favorite, but is honestly the most logical character to appear as the Jedi to come get Grogu. And they went with it. They went with the logical choice and the best storytelling choice too, because obviously Luke in this instance would be the most willing Jedi to go get it, and he's, actively to go get Grogu, and he's active in trying to rebuild the Jedi Order at this time in the storyline, if you're trying to keep continuity and stuff like that in place. Point being is that I never thought Luke was going to be the choice, but they went with it. They went with that unexpected choice, so I'm fairly certain that they're going to go with unexpected choices in this show, and I think it would be interesting for them to not have Grogu. Also, the other problem is if you had scenes with Grogu and Luke, they're going to have to improve the de-aging technology. I didn't think it was like the worst thing I've ever seen, but it was clearly de-aged, and we've all seen the deep fakes that are now on the internet of how that does it better. If they're going to do it, they're either going to have to put a lot more money and time into making de-aged Mark Hamill look a lot younger, or they're going to have to hire an actor. And honestly, I think they should just go ahead and go with Sebastian Stan. Mark Hamill has personally given his blessing on Twitter and various other places about Sebastian Stan taking over the role. He looks a lot like it. He's obviously an excellent actor. If you've ever seen any of his movie roles, even as just the Winter Soldier in Marvel, he has that history with Disney, and I'm sure he would be okay with it. Recasting Luke is fine because it would be exploring a time where we do want to see Luke. You can have somebody new play him, just give us the right story, and the fans will eventually get over it, especially if the person does well. And this is what we want. We want to see Luke Skywalker as a Jedi Master. Unless they recast, I don't think they're going to do that. And I think, honestly, instead, I think they might be trying to plan a Luke Skywalker show of his own, whether it be live action or maybe even animated, possibly. I'd be fine with that if they wanted to do that, because then they could maintain Mark Hamill still. But I think Luke is going to be incorporated into his own thing, along with maybe other legacy characters, and instead of encroaching in on the Mandalorian. And that's also kind of a personal preference. As much as everybody loves seeing Luke kick some Dark Trooper ass, the show is about the Mandalorian, and I enjoy him and all of his supporting characters like Greef Karga and Cara Dune and all of them. I enjoy them enough as their own original characters that I don't want other characters that are bigger interrupting and overflowing. Boba Fett was used in just the right amount of where he was there and awesome, but not overshadowing. And I'm so glad that he's getting his own show. He deserves his own attention on his own, and he doesn't need to be overshadowing other characters. Just like how Ahsoka was brought into the show for just one episode and now she's getting her own. That's great and fine. I want to see them in their own thing. I don't want them necessarily encroaching on the story of the other. Let me address that. I think that Grogu will be gone all of season 3. I think they're going to go with the route of that, emotionally keeping him away. I think he's going to be gone for pretty much all of season 3. Maybe pops up at the end, like the last episode of season 3. Like maybe Grogu, since he's already has training and he's quite strong in the Force, learns quickly enough that his training is over, or that Luke and Grogu both sense that the Mando is in danger at the end of that season and that they need to come in and help. I do think he's going to be gone for a season, but I don't think he's going to be gone forever. That would be crazy. I do think he's going to return. Now, the thing that I think is the more interesting is about what do you do then if that isn't the story? Well, the season finale ended clearly, in my opinion, about what direction the show is going to go. It's going to go with Mando, the Mandalorian, teaming up with other Mandalorians to restore Mandalore. Introducing Bo-Katan and having those characters appear, I think clearly sets that up. And the season ends with that. I mean, Bo-Katan has a light cruiser that she wants to use to reunite Mandalore with, and she wants to retake the mantle, but unfortunately she can't necessarily get other Mandalorians to join her because she doesn't have the Darksaber. That is what Din has, and that sets up a clear, interesting, dramatic conflict to go into this season, is that they're allies and theoretically probably want the same things, and that's, I'm assuming, what Din is going to be helping with now that he doesn't have Grogu to take care of. He's probably going to endeavor to, try and unite his people. There's this conflict now about how he is sort of the Jon Snow now of this show. He has the rightful mantle, but he doesn't want it. He wants to pass it off to somebody who is much more ruthless than him, who does want the mantle, which would be Bo-Katan, who's kind of like Daenerys. That's clearly where I think the show is going to go, and I mean, it's already set up the conflict. Moff Gideon was already taunting Bo-Katan for her inability to be the true rightful owner of the Darksaber. He was trying to stoke that conflict between her and Mando. I think where season 3 is going to go is that, and this is of course my personal opinion, what I think they're going to do is they're going to have Bo-Katan and Din and Moff Gideon. As a quick caveat, I do think that Moff Gideon is going to stay in The Mandalorian, because even though Cara Dune is, a Ranger of the Republic, and there is that new show, Rangers of the New Republic, she might take him to them and use him as like, a resource. I think that is possible, but he's already kind of established pretty well as the antagonist of Mando and whatnot, and also has a deep history, obviously, with Bo-Katan in The Mandalorian specifically. So I think he's going to remain in Bo-Katan's custody, even though Cara Dune is probably going to want to try and bring him to the New Republic, and he might appear in that show as well. I guess we have to see if Cara Dune is a part of that show, the Rangers of the New Republic, or not. But anyway, what I think the new season is going to be is it's going to be Bo-Katan and Din are going to be together on this light cruiser, and they're going to travel around in it to find the remaining Mandalorians throughout the galaxy, and they're going to attempt to recruit them in a mission to go back to Mandalore and retake it, which I'm wondering if Mandalore at this point is not only a wasteland, but if also has like Imperial remnants or some other warlords that are on it that are preventing them from reclaiming it. It's probably, I don't remember where Mandalore is exactly in the galaxy, but I imagine it's not part of the core worlds and other places that would get a lot of really direct New Republic help. So anyway, they're going to travel around and then try and retake Mandalore. Now, what I think is going to happen, and is what's going to build up the drama, is that I think Bo-Katan is going to attempt to get the other Mandalorians to join her cause. But the issue is that they're not going to want to listen to her for a couple of reasons. One, she, at the end of Rebels, already got the Darksaber and tried to lead the Mandalorians to freedom, but obviously failed because this great purge evidently happened, which resulted in her losing the Darksaber in some shape or form, because Moff Gideon has it, and, decimation of Mandalore and the Mandalorian people that we now see in the Mandalorian series. So she already failed, and I feel like a lot of the Mandalorians will know and remember that, and will not be exactly jumping up in their jetpacks to go with her again. Also, they're going to know that she doesn't have the Darksaber, that she isn't the current wielder, and instead they're going to see that Din has it. And even if they do, they're also going to remember the fact that she was gifted it at the end of Rebels. Sabine Wren gave it to her, and she accepted it. And I think Bo-Katan is superstitious about Darksaber now, that she, since she didn't accept it the correct way, that she didn't win it in combat, that she wasn't worthy, and that's why it failed. And I think she really, really wants it the legitimate way, and the other Mandalorians are going to recognize that and be very wary. So instead of joining with her, they agree to join because Din will be the reluctant leader that they look to. They're going to look at him and see that not only is he the rightful owner of the Darksaber, he won it in combat, they're also going to see that he's disconnected from all the politics and history and previous failures, if you will, that Bo-Katan is associated with it. They're going to see him as fresh eyes, someone who isn't power hungry like she is, that doesn't have all this baggage, and they're going to go with him, which I think will only further the divide and conflict between Din and Bo-Katan. And so they're going to go around and they're going to be collecting this, and then they're going to still have Moff Gideon, who's probably going to be able to give them some information about where Mandalorians are and whatnot. And he's going to be this silent little devil, you know, hanging on Bo-Katan's shoulders, constantly taunting her and nagging her about her failures in the past and about her current failure now to really unite the Mandalorians under her banner. So I think that tension is going to build until it eventually explodes, and that Bo-Katan is going to essentially become a secondary antagonist that Din is going to have to deal with. Whether the show goes with her ultimately coming around and realizing either she's not the rightful ruler, or, you know, calms down enough that she can be the rightful ruler, or whether Din will, you know, actually accept the mantle of Mandalore and become the leader of the Mandalorians, that's something I can't necessarily predict on, but I do think that is the direction that this show is going to go. I do honestly think, and I think it's great, I think it's fantastic if they go that way, because this show is called The Mandalorians, and in that name you kind of expect a lot of Mandalorian things to go, and Dave Filoni has already explored a lot of Mandalorian history in both Clone Wars and Rebels, and I think this show is really just a continuation of that fascination with the Mandalorian culture, and something that we've all wanted to see ever since, you know, Boba Fett made his first appearance on screen. This is the storyline that is needed now that we don't have Grogu. We can see a lot of focus on Mandalorian specifically, and really, you know, keeping to the name of that show. And so I think the main focus of season 3 without Grogu will be the reestablishment of Mandalore and the Mandalorian society in this conflict between about what direction they're going to go. Are we going to try and return to some kind of old-fashioned way, whether that be Bo-Katan's way or even the Children of the Watch's way that Din grew up in? Or are they going to try and find some new direction that they can go that perhaps Din himself can be a leader of? That's where I think season 3 is going to go, and that's where I hope it goes anyway. I hope it fully goes straight ahead into this exploring of the Mandalorian society that way. All right, now that I've waxed poetic on what my hopes and dreams are for season 3 of The Mandalorian, I do want to talk about the future of other shows and just Star Wars in general now. So I'll start with the end credits scene, where we find out that Boba Fett is going to be getting his own solo show. I believe it is a show. I don't know if it's been I don't remember or recall right now if it was announced as a limited series like the Obi-Wan, which is essentially just going to be, you know, a long movie, or if it is a movie for Disney Plus, or if it is an actual, or if it is going to be an actual show that, you know, continues for at least a couple seasons. This is what I think the Book of Boba Fett is going to be. Based off of that scene, Boba Fett is going to obviously try and establish himself as a main man. Boba Fett, for most of his adult life, as far as we know, has spent serving others. He has been a bounty hunter working for either the Bounty Hunting Guild or for Jabba the Hutt specifically, and has been taking orders from people. And we know in the comic books he's also been taking orders from Darth Vader and such. He has been lower on the totem pole. And I think now, after Jabba dying and not necessarily being beholden to him anymore, and after going through almost dying in the Sarlacc pit, and obviously whatever he went through his 5 years on Tatooine and what else he was doing, I think he's changed, and I think he realizes that he no longer wants to serve anybody. He kind of alluded to the fact that he doesn't adhere to any code or answer to any code in season 2 of The Mandalorian itself. I think he wants to be in charge of his own fate, and that's why I think he goes to the remnants of Jabba's criminal empire and takes out Bib Fortuna and takes over for himself. The question is, how exactly are they going to do it? Because the music in it is, granted, it's his theme song, but it's quite ominous. And Boba Fett is honestly a quite ominous, deadly character. I mean, he was very brutal and warlike in his fight scenes in the Mando season 2. And I mean, he's generally been considered kind of a villainous character in most of his portrayals, or at least we see him that way. But at the same time, we also saw that he's very honorable. We see that he makes, it doesn't even seem like he made a verbal agreement with Mando about, you know, protecting Grogu, but yet apparently he took that quite to heart, and so he served Mando in saving Grogu, and then, you know, did his deed, and he kept his word. So he seems to be quite honorable, or have some sense of code of honor that to me doesn't make him particularly villainous. And then we also see that Fennec Shand is with him, and Fennec Shand has been seen to be a fairly ruthless person in her first season, but in this season she also seems to not be. I mean, she goes ahead and doesn't make any complaint whatsoever about helping Mando save Grogu with Boba Fett. She makes no complaints about that. She goes along with it, you know, just fine. Additionally, she frees that slave girl. Now, you could say that, oh, it's just her relating to her as a woman and she wanted to free her because she doesn't want to see a fellow female suffer that, but I think it goes more than beyond that. I think it just shows her general compassion for people that don't deserve death. You know, I don't think she likes killing people who don't quote unquote deserve it, essentially. So I think she's a good or moral bounty hunter in some sense. I do feel like that hints like that I don't think they're going to go with Boba Fett being necessarily a criminal mastermind. I don't think he's going to be a villain, is what I'm saying. I don't think the book of Boba Fett is going to be Boba Fett becoming like Darth Maul with his Shadow Collective group that he had in the Clone Wars. I don't think he's going to be an evil criminal mastermind. What I do think he's going to be, though, is I think he's going to establish essentially his own side bounty hunters guild, and or he's going to be like a vigilante. He's going to set up his own vigilante group where he does good, you know, for a price, perhaps. I mean, I don't think he's going to do it, you know, pro bono or for free. I think he will essentially establish himself as a soldier for hire, you know, A-Team style, and help the galaxy. I think he wants to do some good. Whatever experiences he had in the Sarlacc pit, which I do thoroughly believe they're going to explore and fully explain, you know, how he made it out of the Sarlacc pit alive and what he's been doing on Tatooine for the last 5 years or so. They're going to go into that in that show, and I think they're going to show that he kind of went through sort of a spiritual journey where he's kind of wanting to turn a new leaf and leave a better legacy. I mean, that is the story of Boba Fett and Jango, essentially. They're very concerned about their legacy and what they leave behind, and I think Boba Fett more so than Jango because he's a clone of Jango, and obviously Bo-Katan has shown, you know, the scorn that she has for him being not only a foundling but a clone of a foundling. So I think he really wants to establish a legacy that means something, and his brush with death, I think, showed him that maybe his legacy wasn't so great and he wants to build a better one now. Maybe that's why he even repainted his armor. It's a sign that he's turning over a new leaf. He's no longer this old Boba Fett that we knew him as, this ruthless bounty hunter. He's now this new Boba Fett who is perhaps a good mercenary vigilante for hire. I do also, by the way, think they're going to explain why he didn't just take his armor from Cobb Vanth, and I think that ties into him wanting to be a good person. He saw that his armor was being used for good, and so he just let Cobb Vanth have it because it was actually being used in a way that's honorable. Someone deserved the armor. Maybe he felt like he didn't deserve it anymore, so he never bothered to take it. But then once Din took it, then he was like, well, I don't know what this person is like. Maybe he's not honorable or whatever, and plus he's already got his own Mando armor. I'm going to go after him and take it back since it's no longer being used for good. But I think the show is going to go into that. But I think the Book of Boba Fett is going to be about him and Fennec establishing this new group that is going to be like an opposing bounty hunters guild or a vigilante group that's going to kind of clean up Tatooine and other parts of the galaxies for a price of some sort. Additionally, what I hope that the show does is that, like in the Clone Wars series where we saw Boba Fett lead a group with other bounty hunters, is that this show is also going to bring us live action awesome versions of some classic Star Wars bounty hunters. We do know from the Clone Wars show that Bosk, the Trandoshan bounty hunter first seen in Empire Strikes Back, essentially served as a mentor to Boba Fett. And Bosk has been very prominent in that both the Clone Wars and even in I believe an episode of Rebels or two. And also he's been very prominent in the video games. He's been featured as a main playable character in both of EA's new Battlefront game, despite having very little screen time. And I think that's a way of kind of propping up Bosk for audiences in the future. I also do hope they bring in characters like Dengar. Dengar has also been shown to have a past with Boba Fett, and he's been voiced in the cartoons and in the video games by Simon Pegg. And then they could introduce IG-88, and perhaps they can make IG-88 be voiced by none other than Taika Waititi, who did the voice of IG-11 in the first season of Mando. They could just write in that all IG units have that same voice, and so he could just come back and play that character. I just hope that they bring in other bounty hunter characters as well and explore them more. So I kind of hope that this show shows Boba Fett sort of creating his new, mercenary group, like I said, the A-Team, and including all these other cool bounty hunter characters that we've been introduced to in the past and fleshing out their story. And I also kind of hope that even though this takes place in the same timeline as The Mandalorian, that this is either a limited series or a movie, and that it's not overly crossing paths with the Mandalorian. I don't think Boba Fett cares too much about the future of Mandalorians in general. I think he's so removed from that it's not a huge deal to him. They've already shown that he doesn't particularly care. But if it is connected to The Mandalorian, I'm okay with that, and honestly, they're probably going to connect it to The Mandalorian, and I think it would be very fitting if Boba Fett, in some way, shape, or form, learns to be accepted by other Mandalorians, and Bo-Katan specifically, by going to help them in the retaking of Mandalore, and that he finally finds a place and gains like true status as a Mandalorian, which, you know, a lot of fans would really love, that he would be finally for once universally recognized as a true Mandalorian by other Mandalorians. But what do I think about other shows? So they announced that the Ahsoka show and the Rangers of the New Republic are coming out, and that they're taking place in the same story, in the same timeline as The Mandalorian, and that they're all going to eventually converge, kind of like the Netflix Marvel shows with Jessica Jones and Iron Fist and Luke Cage and whatnot, all coming together to then become the Defenders into an event series. So what I think those shows are going to be is, I think the Rangers of the New Republic are going to include the Ranger characters that we've seen in season 2, the, you know, like Trapper Wolf with Dave Filoni, and the other guy from Kim's Convenience, whose character name I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's going to feature them and probably a whole slew of other characters, and quite possibly Cara Dune. And I think it's going to just be showing them essentially being Rangers or cowboys. I think it's going to have a very like kind of cowboy westerny kind of vibe, and they're going to be going out to, you know, planets on the outer rim, trying to you know, wipe out Imperial remnants and trying to unite the outer rim worlds to joining the New Republic. They're going to collect information about what is the Empire exactly doing, what are their plans, and how are they establishing all this power, and for what ends. The question of what that is, I think is almost a topic for a video in and of itself, because I've seen a lot of theories about how these shows are working toward explaining what the sequels are, and there's a lot of evidence to me shows that is what they're doing, because I don't know if they're going to try and decanonize the sequels, but there is a lot of potentiality that this also isn't all working toward the sequel trilogy, and it might not be just a business or even creative idea to want to do that. No one wants to see all of these cool characters and cool things have to eventually turn into that. I mean, for example, if that was the case, we're building up this awesome Luke Skywalker training Grogu to only have Grogu either be killed by Kylo Ren once he goes crazy and destroys the Jedi Order in like 20-25 years in the sequel trilogy, or it means that he's just gonna eventually like leave and do nothing to then help take down Kylo Ren in the sequels. So none of that is particularly satisfying to any fans. So I think there is a lot of good reason to see that they're not wanting to build toward the sequel trilogy, and that perhaps they are going to try and decanonize the sequels and maybe make an alternate universe or reality or whatever. But that's a whole other thing. So whatever they choose to be, what the Empire is building or leading up to, I do think that's what the point of the new Rangers is going to be. And then the Ahsoka show is obviously clearly just her search for Grand Admiral Thrawn, and also in conjunction her search for Ezra Bridger, because that's what she said she was going to do at the end of Rebels. And I think Sabine Wren will probably make her appearance in there too. They're probably going to come together, eventually reunite in order to find Ezra Bridger. And I think the whole crux of her show is geared toward that specifically. I don't think there's going to be much extra things that go on. What I think all these shows are then going to come together is essentially, I'm thinking that this is going to be Disney's version of making the Thrawn trilogy. I think introducing Grand Admiral Thrawn in the Mando and hinting at that is going to be setting him up as the big overarching villain that all these people are working for. I think Moff Gideon is not just his own warlord trying to do his own thing. I believe he answers directly to Grand Admiral Thrawn, and Thrawn is essentially acting as the new leader of the Imperial remnants, or is at least the most powerful of the remaining Imperials. I think the show is going to have Ahsoka trying to find Thrawn and realizing that he has this big grand master plan. The Rangers of the New Republic show is going to be showing how he's amassing that grand plan from the Grand Admiral, and that all of his machinations and whatnot are building toward trying to take down the New Republic and establish a new Imperial order with him as the leader. And I think some of that may even very well include having a base on or leading the assault that happens on Mandalore. I think the Mandalorian story with the retaking of Mandalore is going to come into play as well. And I think the event series will eventually culminate in essentially the Mandalorians, the New Republic, and Ahsoka all leading a three-way assault on Grand Admiral Thrawn and adding and ending his threat to the galaxy. Perhaps this is the time diverging split that allows the sequel trilogy to not ever happen. I don't know. Or they're just going to do their own thing. Mandalorian, Clone Wars, and Rebels has shown a clear respect and love of the now Legends canon and reintroducing them. They clearly did that with the Dark Troopers, and even, referring to how they're third generation. So they even referenced the fact that unseen live action versions of Dark Troopers were not just the machine, the droids that we've seen before, bringing back Jaster Morrell for Boba Fett and his backstory, which were in, some comic series. This series has shown a reverence and knowledge of legends and bringing them back into canon. They did that with the Krayt Dragon too, and even the Krayt Dragon Pearl. So I don't think it is at all beyond this show to be doing a adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy, and that's what I hope they're going to build toward. And I do kind of hope that maybe it branches off into some alternate reality, but like I said, I won't get into that. All right, there we have it. That was me talking about Star Wars for a really, really long time. I hope that I kind of expressed what I was thinking or hoping for the future of Star Wars to be fairly clearly. For now, I'll leave you off with the thoughts of that. I hope you have a fantastic new year and that we are going to be getting some amazing Star Wars here in the future. Remember to like and subscribe, of course, to my channel. All of your support is super appreciative and helpful. And have yourself a happy life day as well. Adios.